Hello everyone, we're back for the feature match of round 3. I'm here with Martin again. Good to have you here. And what are we gonna see today? I mean, this round. There is Jakub Citron, and I would say he plays his trademark deck. I would go as far as that.
Very nice layout for the deck pick.
Yeah. Also, I see some altered Terra Wars. Like, okay, nice. But either way, we have green-white Terrageddon.
With a sneaker splash for Pyroclasm, I see in the board.
And is that Goblin Legionnaire up there? I think there's like 2 copies of Goblin Legionnaire.
Ah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
That is a really cool creature.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And we have, what is that? Weather Wayfarer, right?
Yeah, Weather Wayfarer, Nimble Mongoose.
Call of the Herd, I can see. Both Armageddon and is that a singleton Cataclysm?
Anarid Brushhopper. Oh, this deck is spicy.
Yeah. A couple
we have Goblin Legionnaire, the older cousin of Mog Fanatic.
A couple of naturalized main deck, and also Seal Cleansing. Yeah, it seems to be well kind of hedged. This deck with some removal.
And he's up against Gregor Posinek. I hope I pronounced it at least remotely close to how it's supposed to be. And okay, I like this one.
Yeah, this is super nice. Classic red-green beatdown.
Yeah. We actually talked with Martin yesterday about the card Fires of Yavimaya, and we kind of hedged on the side that it's a bit too slow. But this deck, it doesn't mess around. It's faster. No fires, just burn and fast creatures, red-green aggro.
And they started. Seems like Gregor was going first with a Treetop Village, and Jakub followed with a Wayfarer, and Gregor stuck at one land, it seems.
Or maybe he doesn't play the second one because of the Wayfarer. Like, because I think the way it worked is that Gregor played Treetop.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
This you take 2 or 1. You can decide.
Oh, okay.
Jakub takes 2.
So this is like a curd ape if the opponent has a non-basic. For those who haven't seen the Sky Shroud Elite. But the Wayfarer, is it 1/1? It's not 1/2.
It's a 1/1, yeah.
It's a 1/1, okay, yeah. So he could have cracked and traded if he wanted, but assuming here that he wants to keep the Wayfarer. Curse Scroll for Gregor doesn't do a whole lot.
And now, maybe actually I'm thinking Gregor doesn't have the second land, because like at this point you want to play it, right? Like against 2 lands from your opponent. Interesting.
But still, we don't know. I mean, it is also the trick with the fetch. I mean, you can crack it and not find anything when you shuffle. I don't know.
Also, like you can crack it and then activate the Wayfarer in response when you only have 1 and your opponent has 2, right? And you can find.
Yeah,
does that work? Should? Because like you just need to have fewer lands, so you crack it, and before you find it, you search in response.
That should work. Yeah. So maybe he's holding back.
But now we have 2 basics.
Yeah, now we have 2 basics.
Let's see.
Okay, and the Elite is just a 1/1 again.
Yes,
we note.
For now it's a 2/3 again.
Yeah, and again, so this is one of those sneaky lands that he can get rid of eventually. But he has so what relevant lands has he? He has Treetop Village. I'm assuming there's some Wasteland or something like that as well in the deck.
In Gregor's deck?
Yeah, no, in Jakub's. I mean, to get with a Wayfarer. Yeah.
There's like Richard and Port for sure, and. Okay, Swords, your Sky Shroud Elite.
Okay.
Alright, to spend the bleeding a bit, and Gregor has the second Treetop Village. The Seal is ready for the Curse Scroll should it become a problem, but right now it does not seem that that's what this game is about, and I think Jakub just wants to find some pressure, something...
Perhaps some red mana, we can assume.
Both players want something to start attacking with, and then... Okay, that works. Bring back the Gemstone Cavern. And so 1 mana floating. That'll be 3 mana and a Terravore. Is it a 1/1? That would be a 1/1 Terravore, I think.
Yeah, should be.
And attack. Yes, there we have it. Attack for 1. The Gemstone Gemstone Mine is not in play. It's in.
Yeah, it's in the hand.
It should be in the hand, right?
The counter there is.
You can't have counters on cards that are in your hand, Jakub. But
so do you know this this creature in Chinese that Gregor play now?
I remember actually when it was in Standard, and people thought it was kind of a big deal. because it's uncounterable, and it's also you can't target it, right?
Yeah.
So when it was printed, people were thinking, well, this is you can't deal with it. Some decks cannot.
Yeah.
Um,
Oops, Armageddon.
and the Terra War becomes a bit bigger. Yeah. So my problem with the Mongoose is that it just feels a bit too fair. It's a 2-mana 2/1.
It's also a shame that you can't put the Armadillo Cloak on it
because
it has the
right.
older
That's
version,
right,
like the nerf version.
It's not hexproof. It's really just a shroud.
But wow, what an Armageddon there. Is Terra War the Tarmogoyf of Premodern?
That sounds like a nice It feels quite accurate, to say it that way. And also, I don't know what a red-green deck is gonna do with a Terra War that just grew to 9/9 thanks to courtesy of a wasteland, and this game looks like it should be over.
And it has trample, so no tricks.
Blurred Mongoose is a nice card, but it's too fair for this game. We'll see in the next one. So yeah, here we can see the red-green deck. I like the multitude of 1-drops where you just like come out of the gates blazing and then you just hope to finish the game. How do you feel about no Rancor, by the way? Is this a deck where you play Rancor? Like maybe a good card, but
Rancor is. I like Rancor.
me too. Yeah. That's what I'm asking. But okay, anyway, like we were in the sideboard. Anything you like in particular?
I don't see anything really to combat like the Terra War plan here, right?
Yeah, maybe the Furnace. Phyrexian Furnace is a bit slow. Like if everyone plays Geddon, then they will have a couple of turns to attack with the Terra War. That's still pretty big.
Yeah, perhaps it's a necessary evil, so to speak, but it feels kind of passive still to include in this kind of match. I think he has to go for speed.
Yeah.
And really take the initiative.
That's also true. It's a very reactive card.
Yeah.
And so, the disenchants, do you feel that there are enough targets? Or again, the trouble is that you would be boarding in the reactive spells if you go for disenchants. But basically, the whole sideboard
does he have? Like Sylvan Library doesn't feel.
Sylvan Library, Mog's Diamonds, maybe not enough. I guess that's not enough. Like as nice as it would be to hit hull with like a Sylvan Library and Mog's Diamond with a Hull Breach, maybe that's just not worth it. And we can see there's 3 copies of Sylvan Library, 4 Mog's Diamonds. What is Jakub boarding in, by the way?
Pyroclasm. Pyroclasm is fantastic, especially with the Mongoose. If you do have the threshold,
that's true.
Already.
That's true.
So some number. So otherwise I don't know. Like, will he take in like Suran Orb in this matchup? I'm not sure. I mean, he has a lot of burn, but then again, also like it is a rogue deck, the red-green one. So we cannot assume that Jakub knows his deck. He only saw green cards. He didn't even see a red.
He saw Carpulson for us that got wastelanded.
Okay.
Very briefly.
Okay. So but he doesn't know, like for instance, the amount of burn.
I don't think so. And it's true that Zuran Orb, like if you're expecting mostly creatures with some burn, then it's not a good card. But if you're expecting just a couple of 1-drops and then a lot of burn, then it's great. So it's very hard to estimate exactly where Jakub's opponent is when you don't know the deck.
I think I would like to have at least one Zuran Orb in the deck.
Okay.
At least so you can grow like your Terra War that way.
Oh sure, yeah.
And also you can save it.
That's true.
Because if you assume that he has some amount of burn spells, that's a great way to actually.
That's true. I like it. Yeah, and and like the Terra War is going to be the plan A here. That's by far the best card for Jakub, I think, to attack with. And he should. Otherwise, the other deck has a lot of reach where they can burn him out if the game goes too long. So I like the
Jakub definitely wants to go bigger in this game with Terra War. Definitely.
Yeah. All right. So the players should be done sideboarding soon. And just like it looks like Jakub really put quite a lot of effort into the deck with like the altars, and there's I like it. Unglued lands, also very classy. And some gold bordered Rishadan ports. We talked about replenish before, and one thing I like is that you keep seeing those like mostly gold bordered replenish decks just because they were printed in like what the
You can imagine someone just storing it like in the attic and then
I have it. Now let's go and play. And I mean, of course you have to change it a little bit because like the way it was it is 60 cards, but I think you have to make a couple of changes there. But like the bulk of the deck, you can just go with it. And I think also these decks, the gold bordered packs disappeared from like online marketplaces a long time ago when people realized that this is an actual Premodern deck. So I don't think they're that easy to get.
I noted also Simoon is a favorite card of mine in Gregor's sideboard, but I don't think it seems super relevant. I mean, it can take the Mongoose before Threshold, but there are no. I didn't see any like mana creatures, no werebears.
There's no werebears as far as I know. There's just the Weathered Wayfarer and Nimble Mongoose. I think that's just not enough.
So it doesn't seem super. There's the Furnace.
There's the Furnace we talked about. So I think Gregor would much rather have a Jackal Pup than a Furnace.
This is a very passive start for this kind of deck. It has a lot of 1-drops.
Yeah, and, that's true. That's true.
So I wonder what. Yeah, I mean, for sure he needs a follow-up creature on turn 2. But this seems, I don't know, it's underwhelming to start a game like this from because he's clearly the beatdown in this, and Jakub wants to go bigger. We have the Mongoose of a Karplusan Forest from Jakub. And we see another nice Karplusan Forest from Gregor into the Blurred Mongoose.
So the two
mongeese.
Is that right? Yeah. Two mongeese can have a chat in the red zone.
But I mean, the one toughness for the Blurred Mongoose is a bit of a bummer. I mean,
like it trades for Llanowar Elf or for basically anything.
Should have been a 2/2, right? Like with today's standards, it would be had like a 4/4 creature or something. But
compared to today's standards, it's almost like it's just creatures came a long way since the Premodern times.
But that Mongoose has a cool artwork. With the Wayfarer for Jakub, but Gregor is starting to chipping away at the fetch land.
So the threshold does not seem very likely anytime soon. Now Gregor is not afraid to play land number 3, so the Wayfarer can get online if Jakub gets to untap with it.
It's true that the Furnace is also good against Threshold here. I mostly had Terrageddon in mind, but that's very true.
Jakub realizes that Threshold is not coming anytime soon, and he just trades. And there's another Blurred Mongoose. All right, a lot of monkeys in this match so far. It's the match with the most monkeys that I've seen in a while. 3 lands. Okay, 3/4. I remember also this card when it was printed, people thought that a 3/4 for 3, as even these stats already justify the card seeing some kind of like having some presence, and it's very difficult to kill.
In this matchup, it's really a wall.
It's just straight up bigger than anything than Gregor can muster, right? Like, so what are you gonna do about it? Are you like?
He needs. Assuming he kept his curse scroll, but that would be like one possible plan here. But we're looking at a kind of longish game, perhaps.
Looks like and I think the longish game just favors Jakub.
Definitely.
If Jakub is at like 10 life, then maybe scratch that and let's have a different game here.
Okay,
so
that one we didn't really.
Something that makes the game go faster. But
now there's a race instead. And this changes the dynamics. Perhaps Jakub now also might want to consider going on defense.
And he does. Or just race. Like, you're attacking me for 2, I'm attacking you for 3. That's, like, in my books, that checks out. Also, Jakub's mana base now is a bit awkward, where he... After all the wastelands, he like has a Barbarian Ring, Plains, and Wasteland, and now it's just down to Barbarian Ring and Plains.
And again, Furnace is relevant here, stopping Barbarian Ring. Threshold. That's right. It could be very relevant in a race situation.
I don't know what's in Jakub's hand, but I would suppose there are some spells that are just not... It's not possible to cast them.
You could have like a swords that you cannot use now for the mongoose.
Does Vortex stop the life gain from swords? So it makes the opponent's swords better? It does, right? Like, you can't target the mongoose, of course. The mongoose is too sneaky for that. But like, if Gregor plays something else, then swords is not the answer that I mean, it's better than it normally would be.
But like in a race here, it's true, right, that Jakub could in theory exile the brush hopper like post attack and then get it back as a blocker.
Okay, you mean on his own turn?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, especially since if he is stuck with some green cards in his hand that he cannot realistically use anyway. But that is a very good point. That is a very good point. He can kind of give it vigilance for pitching 2 cards a turn.
Yeah, because now it's all about racing, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And I assume he has a bunch of cards in hand. Yeah. We can't really see.
So he goes down to 11.
And he's already ahead in the race.
Yeah. 2 mana. Is it Goblin Legionnaire? No, it's a Pyroclasm. Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Mongoose goes
There's no Shroud helping against that. And
Treat of Village.
That's also... That would put him... If he has another green source, that would be... Put him on the clock. 1 turn clock, basically, with the Vortex.
Yeah. Now, Gregor decides it's a good time to crack that Furnace and draw a card.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense that he's in a spot where he just needs something. Otherwise, his own Vortex is going.
I can't really see how he would even turn this around with that 3/4 beast.
Right.
Even if he finds a wasteland or something for the treetop, he just...
I agree. It's just Jakub's threats are bigger this game. We've seen a couple of blurred mongooses just outmatched by 3/3 and 3/4. And also, just Gregor did not have a fast start with the Phyrex and Furnace. And now he just
way too passive. Pup or something there that could have been enough, like to just win the race.
Like turn 1 Pup. Yeah. Now, what if Gregor has like double bolt? Is it enough? Maybe not anymore, because now the treetop can attack as well, right? So like if you're Jakub, you just want to make sure that Gregor doesn't go like stay alive, bolt, you die in your upkeep.
Yeah, he will. He should attack with everything here, and then he will die in upkeep. And if he uses the bolt on the treetop village, then he's safe.
Right.
Anyway, so
I agree.
I mean, unless he has like even more bolts, like 3 bolts.
Like maybe Jakub is going for it. Wait, 1? What just happened? Why does the gemstone mine have just 1 counter? Okay, there's a couple of things I'm not sure about. Okay, we go back to... Briefly it got depleted and now it's back. And there's a Goblin Legionnaire.
Okay,
that would work. Yeah.
In the face as well.
Yeah, that's true.
And without the bolt even saving him.
Shock you go to 6. Shock you go to 4. Gregor goes to 3 in the process. He's gonna go to 1 in his upkeep, but because of the Carplus and Forest, he can't like bolt. So he's gonna go to 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, even if he has a lightning bolt, it's not. You would take 1 damage.
So he goes to 1 in his upkeep, and then but like
what about?
But he has to pay 1 life for the barbarian ring.
A lightning bolt, but he didn't have the lightning bolt as well.
Okay, but that was so risky. That was like you go to 3 in your upkeep when your opponent. Oh my god. Okay, that was extremely
I'm
close.
not even sure if it's worth.
I don't think you want to do it.
You can wait because
because
he will be down to 2, and then whoever blinks first. If he casts the bolt, then you can always respond.
Yeah, exactly. And like if he doesn't cast it, you wait for your upkeep and you put the Vortex on stack and you sacrifice the Legionnaire with your Gemstone Mine instead of your Barbarian.
Yeah.
So you don't go to 3.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. That was a pretty big bullet that Jakub just dodged.
Yeah.
But it all worked for him.
Yeah.
And the truth is that like by doing it in Gregor's upkeep, you avoid a scenario where they have like double like they have Mountain and Bolt. Because if they go into their main phase, play Mountain, and the 2 last cards in their hand are both Bolt, they can just like... Can they? Yeah, they can bolt you in the face, and then whatever happens, you just respond with the other bolt, and then Jakub would have just the Barbarian Ring. So I suppose like maybe doing it right there was a way how to make sure that Gregor doesn't play a Mountain and have his mana like unlocked, and he could even do like Bolt Incinerate, because that would have won the game for Gregor, right? Like he would be on 1.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, whoever blinks first. If Jakub blinks, then Gregor goes Bolt. If Jakub wins in his waits until his upkeep, then Gregor could always like Bolt. If Jakub sacrifices the Legionnaire, he would go in response to the other burn spell. But he would need 2 red sources that don't cost him life.
Yeah, but I think it makes more sense to play around just 1 Bolt.
I think, I agree.
Two.
I agree completely, and I think this was just like, if you want to think about why to do it this way, then maybe that's an argument for that. But I think the number of scenarios where that is relevant is lower than your opponent just having straight out 1 bolt and killing.
Yeah, but if he has 2 bolts, you will lose anyway, right? Because you were dead to the first bolt in this case.
But Gregor had 1 life, I think, after the vortex, so he would need like untapped red source.
Yeah, but he had a Mountain, right?
Yeah, but he would need another one for the second bolt.
Yeah, but I mean, if he used the Barbarian Ring there, as he did, 1 bolt would be enough. That's my point.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. I agree. And I think also it was safer to not do it the way that Jakub did it, but like he took the chance and it paid off. Yeah. And so he got there. And
a red brush hopper. I mean,
what a beat stick.
Yes.
It's just too big for the format. It's like 3-4 it's But like, I think we just saw like 2 decks where the matchup kind of played like aggro matchup, where the bigger aggro just won. They had bigger creatures. Game 1 was about Terrageddon actually, and game 2 was just like bigger creatures. I really, Blurred Mongoose is a card that I wish was good, because it's cool. And I'm just not sure if that's the case.
No. Even something like River Boa, I could imagine even
a
bit more flexible.
That's true.
And can survive potentially like Pyroclasm or whatnot. But
and you can rank her up, unlike Blood Mongoose. Maybe that's one of the reasons why.
That's true. That's a horrible number. That's a horrible number.
Like you really wish you could do it, and you just cannot. Yeah. So this was a pretty quick match. We can maybe go back to our metagame if we have some time, so we can have a look at a couple more decks. So we have Burn, Parallax Replenish, and Dead Guy Ale in the first 3, and we're
to clarify, like the Dead Guy Ale category included all the black-white control decks as well.
That's true, and I think like we could have labeled them separately. That's true. And I think these decks started very, very similar, but I think now maybe they're at the point where it's already like 2 different strategies. I think it started like Dead Guy L adding more control cards, but I think maybe at this point we're like way past the point where these 2 decks.
Did you have a look about the distribution between these 2 decks? Is it the majority control, black-white control, or is the majority the more?
Yeah, I'm not
mid-range?
Sure. I would have to look. I know we have 16 of those decks in total, but I don't know exactly. But in the 4th place, we have Goblins, also with 7%, and actually also 16 decks. So it's exactly the same like the Guy L plus the black-white control. I think nothing surprising there. Goblins are like one of the pillars of the format.
Definitely.
Any thoughts on like which version you would run? Because I think again it's like the deck that where like 30 cards are just you don't mess with those, and then maybe you can fine tune it a little bit with like the last couple of cards. But the version that you personally like.
I would say that the red-green version that most people play seems like the most sensible. I mean, you want to have some kind of naturalized effects in there between the main deck and the sideboard, and then it's a question how many do you have in the main, etc. But you want to have access to them. There's too much,
right? So, but it's mostly about like fine-tuning the numbers, like how many you play, and I don't think there's something. Like we a while ago we tried Goblin deck with which splashed green for naturalizes, but also for Birds of Paradise.
Okay.
because like the idea is that you get turned to war chief. I don't think it was good enough.
I don't like that at all. I have to say, I have to be frank there, but no, it's such a synergistic deck. I mean, you want goblins.
That's true. Like every card that's not goblin just makes your recruiters, ringleaders worse. That's true.
And also, you might not always have the green source turn 1 and so on. So actually.
So I think that was a dead end. Just one question about goblins, but I guess we already covered that basically, because the 2 cards to choose from that I was thinking about are Hearth Charm versus Naturalize. And you already said that Naturalize would be your choice, so that applies.
I think
here,
so,
right?
and especially, I mean, in a tournament like this, you could face whatever. Like I think Naturalize is just a more flexible option. Actually, I mean, if you're dead, like sure that you're going to meet particular like artifacts, like Dreadnought Text or something like that, then that could be the better choice with the charm, I guess. But I like.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I also saw there was a time where we could see also goblins with black for like couple therapy. Also, some of the more funky versions played Burning Wish for some either Living Death or Patriarch's Bidding, which I think is super cool. Like it's a late game card where if you have access to that and you just draw Burning Wish, you just like win because you have War Chief, everything has haste, and you just
There's also this crazy black-red enchantment. I think it's called Dralner's Crusade, which makes the goblins black and give them +1/+1.
Right.
To counter like engineer play.
Right.
It's kind of a more robust counter than say a Goblin King.
It's a pretty good answer. Yeah,
and it's also good like in itself. It's more proactive than compared to Naturalize. So that I think there's room to experiment like with a black-red build. To be honest, also I mean it has a different toolbox. You could play cards like Cabal Therapy or Duress, and even cards like Recurring Nightmare. I don't know. You have like a different toolbox.
Sure. I also saw Diabolic Edict sometimes because it's a way how to get rid of Dreadnought.
You have Terminate and
or Terminate. One of the two. When I was checking all the different deck lists of goblins, maybe one card that I had to read or like look up that I haven't seen, and I thought it was pretty cool, is Goblin War Strike. Do you know what that one does?
Which one?
Goblin War Strike.
I have to.
I had to look it up. It's if I remember correctly, it's a sorcery that deals damage to the opponent equal to the number of goblins you have in play.
Okay.
So it's kind of like sometimes win more, but sometimes like the extra turn that you need, you just like smash them straight away.
Okay.
And I saw it as a one-off in some versions, but I think it's. Maybe it's unexpected, which is a big argument for it, but
is it an instant or sorcery or?
Let me check. That is a good question.
That's of course also the problem. If you play cards like the Goblin Ringleader, you want to really be careful not putting too much non-goblin cards.
Yeah. It's a sorcery. It's a sorcery for 1 mana.
Yeah.
So, not sure if it's good enough, but maybe another like. One thing that's good about it is that people definitely don't expect it, so they can think they're fine, they're gonna live for one turn, and then all of a sudden they get struck.
Should we move on?
Yeah, in fifth place we have Oath Ponza, which I think it's a deck that didn't really exist a couple of years ago, or at least I was not aware of it, and then there was kind of a boom of this deck around. So it's mostly like green based, and then with the green land destruction. We talked about it actually earlier, right? That maybe it's one of the decks that you expect. What do you think about the deck? Do you think it's like it's here to stay and it's one of the pillars of the format? It's good enough?
I mean, I hope so, because I really like it, and I have to say I'm a land destruction dude.
Oh, are you?
So back in the days I played a mono red Ponza a lot, and it was always like. I mean, it was never good enough, to be honest. Like I tried it so hard. I mean, during mostly like in standard type 2 back in the days, but I mean, it was rarely good enough. So it warms my heart a little bit. But actually, land destruction now is considered like a top tier deck.
Sure, yeah.
And even different versions, because I mean, we have the like mono green version now. I guess maybe the red green version is slightly more popular or even dominating. And I don't know. I even saw a mono red Ponza winning a tournament recently.
We had it on camera actually. Mono red Ponza, the one against the mono blue control, which swapped into the Dreadnought. It was like, but I think I've seen what you mentioned that it did well, and it might have won one of the tournaments. Yeah, that's some time ago. So it is a real thing, I think, in Premodern. Mana bases are greedy, and this is the deck to take advantage of that. The cards that like we did with Tomasz before, if you can choose one, which one would you go for? And this is actually the choice between taking the deck into green-white or green-red. And I've seen both of these versions. So the choice would be between Pyroclasm and Swords to Plowshare.
Pyroclasm, I think. Yeah, I think it's like a criminally underplayed card. Okay. I mean, it's starting to... People are starting to catch up, I think. But I think for a long time, even when the Elves deck was the big bad public enemy number one, I was always like advocating for, I mean, put those Pyroclasm in there. Or even in the board, but then they're splashable in some shells, and a really solid card. And we saw it on action here now, from even like a bit unexpectedly, maybe from the green-white Terrageddon deck. But that shows that it's very splashable, and it can it can do a lot versus goblins. It's really good against Sly as well, to get those first couple of creatures off the board, and obviously against elves, and also has some other utility against like meddling mages and whatnot. I think that, I mean, swords is always swords, but you have other substitute if you're looking to kill like a Dreadnought, then you have naturalize effect or crumble or so that you don't really need that. I think the sweeper is more precious.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think I was just thinking about like how many answers does the Oath Ponza deck have to Dreadnought, but then you have Oath, and sometimes you just flip a Terragor that can match the Dreadnought, right? And
the boring answer is, of course, it will depend on whether if you expect to face a lot of Dreadnought decks. If that's a very big share of the meta, perhaps Source would be sensible. But I think kind of in abstract, I like having the class as the kind of backup, because then they also have some redundancy against creature deck, because you have both Oath and Pyroclasm, so then you're really, really solid against like weenies.
I agree. And I think that the Pyroclasm really like it covers your weak spot for this deck, because against the fast deck, if you're dirtling with destroying their lands, they might already be ahead on the board, and this is the card that gets you back from behind the Pyroclasm. So some of those Oath Ponza decks have the main deck Pyroclasms that they're only red cards, and it makes sense because that's how you would lose otherwise. But the Swords to Plowshares can take you into a slightly different direction, maybe somewhere closer to what we saw from Jakub's deck, where it's maybe you cut the Oath but I like the fact that the space there is quite fluid. You can decide to go more with the prison style deck or
and even with the mana base, I could imagine that you could fit both Swords and Pyroclasm in between Mox Diamonds and because you're on color with the
right. Yeah. So let's have a look at the sixth deck. This one, I think it's a deck that I kind of feel like if you asked me before the tournament, I would say we're kind of like behind the peak of its popularity already, because this was the talk of the Premodern community. If the Dreadnought is too good maybe for the format, it's very punishing some time ago. Now maybe like maybe I think it's a relevant discussion again, considering what you mentioned about the LobsterCon finals with
the Dreadnought on Dreadnought.
Yeah. So this card is here to stay. It is a powerhouse, and we have here in the sixth place we have 13 Dreadnought decks in the field of 200 and something people. Any thoughts on the deck? Is it a fair card in the format?
I mean, the combo is certainly not fair.
It's a combo.
Certainly not fair.
Combos are rarely fair, but yeah, I see your point.
What's interesting, I think, is that we see these micro innovations in how to build the deck.
Right.
If there was anything like a consensus that the blue-white version was best, I think we have to like throw that out of the window with Selden's win at LobsterCon with the blue version versus the blue-black version.
And which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and we saw in the previous feature match, we saw Fabian Sjöblom with it was more of a tide control deck, but he had also access to up to 3 dreadnoughts in the signups.
I love the fact that it was spread like 1 copy main deck, 2 copies in the board, which are numbers that are very uncommon.
Yeah.
But I like the logic behind it. You're not full on dreadnought. It's just you take advantage of the fact that it gives you some free wins every now and then.
Yeah.
But,
and if we see like tide control as one end of the spectrum and more the pure combo, Stifle combo. There, I mean, hybridizing these decks, it makes sense because of the overlap with Stifle, but you can imagine that you put yourself on different points on this spectrum. If you go like 50-50, or if you go like 75% control, 25% dreadnought, or more just splashing the tide. So it's interesting, and of course unpredictable for the opponent to know what they're up against, because if they're all in with answers versus dreadnought, then tide can be really nasty.
I agree, and I think also one good argument for keeping the dreadnought in the format is like what you mentioned, that it doesn't get boring because it's so varied. The shells that you can play it, the constant like small step by small step innovation that you mentioned, and I think that's a process that's still very much going on, and so I see it as kind of healthy for the format. My question between the 2 cards was Swords to Plowshares versus Boomerang, which kind of is the split between mono blue and blue white. Maybe now I should say Boomerang or Psychotog, after maybe I should update
or Boomerang or Chain of Vapor, because Chain of Vapor is also you want it if you go with a tide.
Right, that makes sense.
So let me say Chain of Vapor then.
Okay. I'm gonna let you dodge the answer by saying like a third option, because I think it makes a lot of sense that there's the options there are quite limitless. I personally had a lot of fun with the red-green Dreadnought deck with Greater Good and Fling. It was like a pet deck of mine that I played for quite some time, and I loved it. It was still very much not anywhere close to like tier 1, tier 2, but it was a lot of fun. Like drawing 12 with Greater Good feels very good in the format. But yeah, we have Stifle Node, I think, somewhere around where it belongs, 6% of the field. Next, we have we go down to 4%. So we're talking here about decks that have like 8 players in the field, and it's a deck that's as old as the format. I would say the Rock with 4%. Some people say that the Rock is like a 45% win percentage deck against the whole field. That like you're never favored, but you're never too much of an underdog. You can always like get behind, get it back from behind. Do you agree with that assessment? That it's like it's never quite like it doesn't have like any overwhelmingly good matchups, but it can play a game. It can have a game against anything. You see it that way as well?
I think there's room actually for micro innovations also within that archetype, but my impression is maybe there's not a whole lot of work going on right now, but I don't know. I think actually, and this is from like testing, I mean, not recently at all, but from my own experience, I think the Rock can have a better matchup than 45% against Sly.
Okay.
But it depends on the build. If you really have a lot of walls and you have like the bailouts, and maybe if you add spike feeders from the cyber or so, I think you can have at least 50% versus Sly. That's my experience.
Right.
It's not horrible. I mean, in my experience, the Rock should beat a deck like Sly, because if yeah.
Then what are you even like?
Yeah,
what do
we
you
struggle
want to be,
more
right?
against like combo decks and so on.
I think the part where you're not a complete underdog against anything is the discard, because even against combo deck you can just go Duress, Therapy, Peloth, and just kill them before they get anything going.
Yeah.
So that's always what I liked about it. Also, some versions that we've seen are survival. I mean, the rock decks with survival. Which I think is just kind of taking advantage of the fact that survival of the fittest is just such a good card on its own. So you're going to try to put it in whatever deck you can. Does it make sense?
I don't know. I mean, it's perhaps a stretch, I would say, to call it a rock if you put survival in there. I would call it something else, actually. And I wouldn't know if do you keep even Pernicious Deed in that kind of deck?
Sure,
because
that is a good question.
Then you're in deep into non-bow territory, both blowing up your survival and like diluting the deck with non-creatures.
Yeah, you could have some fun with Recurring Nightmare, I guess. That synergizes with, but it's
recurring survival, I would say. But that could absolutely be something playable. But I mean, it has a lot of powerful tools. We have cards like, I mean, we have discard that can discard, and we have removal that can handle a Dreadnought, for instance, in black. We have cards like Engineer Plague. So there are some powerful tools, but
it's my problem with the deck is a bit that it's a very reactive deck in a field that is very wide. You're trying to fight Replenish and Dreadnought and Burn.
Yeah.
And you just discard is where it overlaps the answers. Discard maybe not against goblins. The rest is not great against goblins, but like that's but it's like against the rest of the field you have some game, and then you're just trying to kind of like find the right answers, but it's not always easy.
Yeah, and it's typically a bit slow to wrap up the game, even if you manage the disruption initially.
Agreed. Yeah. If you had to choose between playing a rock deck with either Birds of Paradise or with Wall of Roots.
Wall of Roots.
For sure, hands down, any time of the day, always Wall of Roots.
Yes.
It's so you would play like a version with Wall of Blossoms and Wall of Roots?
Definitely. Sure. And that is regarding what I talked about earlier, my experience versus Sly, and probably why. I mean, the versions I played were pretty solid against Sly, because I opted for like both sets of balls rather than the bursts. The bursts can be absolutely horrible, both against goblins and Sly.
That is true. Like both they die just way too easily. And it's true that I like the fact that Wall of Roots can basically blank a Ball Lightning. Like if you can trade for it, you take 1 damage, and that is a very good trade. Like Ball Lightning is a very scary card. So do you think that if you go for Wall of Roots, you have to play some City of Brass in order to make your mana base work?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like that's a concession to
a couple of City of Brass, I think makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Also, one card that I really like is Natural Order. But actually, like in this regard, I think it doesn't really matter if you're playing Birds or Wall of Roots, because either way you're aiming at Natural Order turn 3.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it squares more with the curve where you want to play Baloth or Natural Order if you play that, or perhaps some other fatty like Blastrum. I could even say like Masticore being decent. Actually.
Sure, yeah, makes sense. It's like a card that dominates like mid-range matchups. It's great.
Yeah, I mean it wins single-handedly against goblins, for instance. I mean, unless they already have like a Siege Gun in play, but once you land it,
you can be behind where it's not fast enough, but in general it's great for the control of their board. Yeah. All right. So I think we can finish our top 8 of the metagame decks here. And 8th place, we have Blue-Green Madness.
Another evergreen.
Right. Which, like, there's an argument, is it good enough? And so every now and then you see somebody doing well with it.
But this is probably one of the most loved decks, is my impression.
I think so.
So we'll always see it in the metagame.
Yeah. I think
that's nice.
It's also one of the decks where I've seen the most copies of like full foil, because it's relatively easy to it's mostly like commons and uncommons, and it looks really, really nice. And yeah, as you said, it's loved. People used to play it back in standard, and they have some fond memories of it. Some people do for sure. Would you say that survival of the fittest is now an inherent part of the deck? Like, can you play Madness without survival?
I wouldn't know really, because this is one deck that I haven't really played myself.
You didn't play back when it was in
No,
standard?
I didn't. So I don't have any personal nostalgia for the Madness deck. Actually, I understand a lot of people do,
Right.
but this is So I leave that to what do you say?
I used to play it back when it was in standard, and it was just hands down the best deck in the field. Like it was just like basically at some point the metagame just boiled down to blue green versus mono black, and that was standard. And yeah, so I think that in Premodern it's not like tier 1, it's kind of like behind, and you're always trying to adapt to the current meta. There was a point where I quite liked Blue Green Madness like as a like more controlling shell with more counter spells. Like I used to play like counterspell, Mana Leak, Circular Logic, and then the idea was that either they play something and you counter it, or they don't play anything and you do go Frantic Search, Arrogant Worm. So it was like more instant speed, and I liked it. I would say now survival of the fittest is just too good, not to play. And I'm happy that the deck is around. Like every time I see it, it's nice that it's there. Yeah. So with that, this is our top 8. For me the biggest surprise is that Parallax Replenish finally getting the recognition. And then anything on the list that surprise you, or something that's missing?
I think it's striking how even this distribution is. I mean, besides Sly at first place, I mean they're almost tied, like from second to sixth place here. So they're really it's not very skewed. And
I agree.
That is quite nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so in practice it's very open. Like if you come as a player here today, you would have no, idea really what you would face here.
It's just a little bit of everything. Kind of thing.
And we should also note that, like, what does this sum to? This top 8, it's less than 50% or 20?
Yeah, like
41, 51, 54%. So it's a little bit more than half. That means that the remaining 46%, we see a lot of other things. Maybe you can just drop some.
If I go through the list from there on, it's Groatog, Tight Control, Stasis, Survival, Terrageddon, Devourer combo, Elves, Enchantress, Mud, Pitrak, Angry Hermit, Landstill, Pox, White Weenie, and these are still decks with like 3 or more people in the tournament. And then the list just goes on and on. It's a very long list of archetypes, including some specials like Machine Head with 2 people, the red-black aggro deck that also like translated from a standard version. Yes, Tron, Full English Breakfast, a lot of decks. It just shows how Premodern is an extremely diverse format, and I love it.
But I think my main main surprise for me may be that Elves is so... I mean, it's not even in the top 8. And we know it's a bit of a particular deck because it requires practice. It also requires some expensive cards, but still, because it has really been the boogeyman, and the Eurochamps has a history of Elves doing well. Pablo is here from Spain, Pablo Suarez, and I'm assuming he is on Elves also today. I'm just assuming that.
Okay, makes sense.
But he's here to defend the title. So we see. I mean, we saw in the top 8 from last year in Darmstadt. I mean, we had. We had this like White Weenie multicolored rogue deck. I mean, that is, another example of a deck that went well last year, but it's not even in the top.
Yeah, it's not really anywhere. We have White Weenie with 3 copies in the whole tournament. So
I wouldn't assume that top 8 decks in the meta will be the same as the top decks in the top 8.
It's gonna be sort of like that's gonna be interesting how it translates into the actual top 8. It seems like we have a feature match ready coming very soon for round 4. So this was our metagame for today. We're gonna see how which decks do well. We're gonna take a very short break, and then we're gonna be back with round number 4. So thanks for having you here. You're gonna see a lot more from both of us later on, and let's have a short break.
Catch you later.